The Monster Hunter Wilds team over at Capcom just held a pre-launch community update stream, presented by members of the community team alongside director Yuya Tokuda, during which they discussed many of the upcoming changes and balancing that they're going to be implementing for launch, based on much of the data and direct feedback given after the open beta testing. They've since followed up with more in-depth breakdowns and individual clips of some of these tweaks that are coming up. Maybe there's more to come, maybe there won't be, but let's go over everything that we have so far from their Twitter. I'm Light It Up Dan. I love making videos that aims to reduce the overwhelm and unknown of the Monster Hunter games, with the majority of you returning from shorts or other guides. If you enjoy the videos, join the 20% and do subscribe, and with that said, let's jump into the changes. In this first clip, we get a look at the work in progress to the new updated prioritized performance mode running on PS5. They say that the team has addressed rendering issues from the open beta test and is making steady improvements for launch. We can see in this fight up against the hotcock soggy Glavenus Chematrice that it's looking way smoother at clean 60 FPS. Alongside this, we've also got the performance targets that are planned for launch, with PC players seeing a similar performance improvement, and the team investigating lowering the recommended GPU requirement. They're also exploring releasing a standalone free hardware benchmark tool, with the prioritized graphics settings both on Xbox One and PS5 having much higher rendering resolutions, with the output resolution still being 4K, with a frame rate of 30 FPS, and the prioritized frame rate setting having rendering resolutions of 1080, with a targeted 60 FPS. We also have confirmation that PS5 Pro enhanced support will be added to Monster Hunter Wilds via a day one patch, with further details to come on how the graphics will be enhanced on PS5 Pro at a later date. No further details for PC Steam currently, but as they said, performance will be improved similarly. Many players really noticed the reduction in hit stop, that pause in the attack animation upon colliding with a monster, adding to the impact and the deliberate nature of striking. It's why stuff like the greatsword felt like you were whipping around this wet noodle. Even if you didn't realize that it was because of the hit stop, that'll be why. They've reported that hit stop and weapon attack sound effects will pack a greater punch in the full version of Wilds, stating that you'll feel the impact and responsiveness of the attacks much more, especially for big moves and finishes. In the clip provided, we've got a work in progress video showcasing the changes with the greatsword. An awesome addition that's going to help the game feel even more satisfying. In previous iterations of Monster Hunter, you've been able to launch your teammates with various attacks, which it seems like they've done away with entirely in this. Here we can observe that we'll have reduced friendly fire, specifically in moves such as the Gun Lancer's Wyvern Fire and the Hammer's Upswing, presumably the Charge Blade Upswing as well, with them going on to say that the Shockproof Jewel will be available to use to fully nullify damage reactions. Shockproof making a return from Rise, disabling damage reactions when you hit a friend or when a friend hits you, so it's a two-way thing, but now without launchers being in there, you can completely nullify all damage reactions from players. I honestly agree with both sides of this debate. On the one hand, it's annoying having your shit interrupted all the time, and on the other side, it is an expression of skill to be able to navigate around such attrition. Ultimately, I would have preferred a toggle to disable all of the launch attacks that players can decide themselves if they wish to use or not, but that's just nitpicking. I'm not fussed. I am super excited for this game. Rejoice! If you felt like monsters changed areas too often in the open beta test, they are happy to report that this will be adjusted at launch. However, monsters that nest deep in the field can move a great distance, so they encourage you to take full advantage of the new pop-up camp system. Thank God, this was definitely a bit annoying, and it did get old quite quickly as well. Chasing down a Chatacabra or a Ray Dow all the way across the entirety of the Windward Plains every time. So less of an irritating barrier to deal with there, which is fantastic. And of course, full use of pop-up camps with fast traveling will make it generally easier anyhow. Onto the weapon specific changes now, of which we have a few. The Insect Glaive takes to the sky once more with the return of Vaulting Dance. Combo into a variety of aerial actions after vaulting, with attack power increasing by 2 levels each time you vault. So for those of you who enjoy bringing zero value to the hunt and helicoptering around the entire time, you're in luck. They've also added an offset attack at the beginning of the charged up descending slash, which I'm not really sure it needed, to be honest, but there we go. Orange Extract effect now also negates knockback while weapon is drawn. Red plus white plus orange extract effect now also mitigates wind pressure, tremors, and roars. Seemingly no adjustments to how you actually execute descending thrust, which I know is a little bit finicky with holding down the charger. It did trip a lot of people up, myself included, but after a bit of practice, I did get to grips with it as well. So perhaps not all of the changes that people were hoping for, but some pretty damn chonky ones. I was not expecting them to add the infinite bounce back in, honestly. So for better or for worse on the actual changes, they do consider feedback seriously, which is a really fantastic thing to have. The Wild's iteration of Lance was another weapon that really divided players quite a bit. Some feeling like it didn't have the same fluidity as in previous iterations, and others like myself thinking it was actually more dynamic. After the open beta data and feedback, they've come back saying the Lance has been greatly improved with more options at your disposal, including the addition of a charge counter, which lets you charge while guarding, opening up multiple counter attack options. So they've brought back counter thrust. Whereas before it was absorbed into the new automatic shield bash counter, it is once more a deliberate move that you can use. In their words, charge counter now allows guarding while charging and can be chained into from any other move. Power guard will now charge to higher levels more quickly when used to successfully defend against more powerful monster attacks. Perfect guard and power guard can now be chained into a new move. We saw that with that big thrusting red aura attack at the end there. Very cool. I love that with the introduction of offset attacks and perfect parries and stuff like that, in some regard the counter attack mechanics did get more homogenized over several weapons. But here Lance seems to be really differentiating itself as the go-to countering weapon once again. That's pretty sick. Switch Axe was quite widely regarded as underpowered by many players, with sword mode and the new explosive attacks not quite having the impact and damage required. Like the previous two, this is one of the weapons receiving quite a considerable change for launch, stating that charging the gauge in Axe mode is now easier, while sword mode is now more powerful and responsive to match gauge consumption. Full Release Slash has also received a bump in feel and power to feel like a powerful finisher. To summarize the changes, various adjustments made so that switching to sword mode after building the Axe mode gauge feels more satisfying, parameter improvements made to various moves including Full Release Slash, knockback is now negated when using Full Release Slash. These are some really cool changes, as Switch Axe was one of the weapons that I really enjoyed in the Wild's open beta, with it not at all being one of my mains coming from World. I play it, but I just delve here and there, to thinking, hey, this might be my main choice. It's absolutely sick. Now with these improvements on top of that, that's even better. The last of their follow-up posts is about the Sword and Shield, which is one of my mains from World. If you've caught any of my previous Wilds coverage, you will know that I was pretty disappointed with it. It felt like to get any decent damage out, you constantly had to do Spinning Reaper and Charged Chop on repeat. I also didn't like how the Perfect Rush was more like Ryze's Perfect Rush with the vaulting, but I still had fun with it. I just had nitpicks. They've said that the Sword and Shield has seen a range of improvements, starting with the return of Rising Slash while guarding. There's also extensive buffs to various attacks, especially normal attacks and Perfect Rush. You'll also feel greater responsiveness across the weapon's moveset. That's fantastic that Perfect Rush is going to be packing more of a punch, because after I realized it barely did anything in the open beta, I just stopped using it entirely for the most part. They've summarized the full improvements as follows. Rising Slash can now be used whilst guarding, parameter improvements to various attacks, especially normal attacks and Perfect Rush, improved the responsiveness of the mobile chop and side slash combo, as well as guard slash and Perfect Rush, improved evasion effectiveness of backstep and sliding swipe. That last one there is quite interesting. Sounds like they've added more iframes to those. Pretty sick. They didn't revert the Perfect Rush back to Worlds instead of Rises, but that's fine. I'm still stoked for these changes. That's everything that they followed up with in further detail after the community pre-launch stream. If there's anything else that they post, I'll be sure to cover that in another video. If you enjoyed this Wilds coverage, be sure to join the 20% of returning viewers and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you in the Forbidden Lands.